Hello, everybody. Welcome to another podcast. So this is called No Visible Bruises. When you speak about of psychological and emotional trauma, we cannot, uh, which cannot be seen even. So today we have our very special host and actually the person who has specialized in this uh, region and area. So we would like to invite Caroline Harley Bell. So actually, she's like a brain spotting practitioner, somatic trauma informant, or in positive psychology coach, and a narcissistic abuse specialist uh, who has specialized on that, and she has plenty of things to share with everybody, experiences, and how to say, like even solutions. So, and she's definitely, we did even an interview about her life and journey also, which was very inspiring. And I definitely think this will be a wonderful, um, how to say, a learning experience for us all, as well as for many people who are silently suffering. And may
Mm,
this be a pathway for them to free themselves and reach safety. So
yeah.
I will be honored to invite Caroline Harley Bell to address. So today, our topic, as she mentioned, is like different types of abuse uh, and how they coercive, no?
Coercive abuse. Yeah.
Coercive control and isolation effects on our mental and emotional health. So
Yeah.
I would be very glad to invite you, Karen.
Thank you so much, Yogi Sanjeev. Sanjivana.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. Yeah. So yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for inviting me back for No Visible Bruises, this amazing podcast where we can just start to explore and to learn into the different types of abuse that are perpetuated by people that feel like it's some type of power play to be able to inflict pain and shame on people so as to control them ultimately,
Mhm.
you know. And so one of the beautiful things that once you give yourself the opportunity to learn a little bit about the behaviors, then you can see to identify them. And that's where you can start to reduce your own fear levels, because when you can see it, you can name it, and then you can tame it, and then you can control it, right? Controlling it within yourself, the way that you react and respond to potential abuse coming towards you, because ultimately an abuser isn't going to change. Their behavior mechanisms are working effectively for their desired outcome, and that's on them to change their behavior, which is abusive. But for the person that's on the receiving end of abuse, this is where you can find your own empowerment by understanding those mechanisms and seeing the triggers that they activate within yourself, so that then you can give yourself some compassionate awareness to find a different response pattern, because they already know the button that gets that result out of you, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking to make you seem like the crazy person. They're making to look like you seem like the abuser, the attacker. When you're out in public, they've pushed all of your buttons to get you already into a sympathetic, heightened activation, fight or flight state, and then they can sit back and watch the play unfold, and then they can play the victim. They can then manipulate and turn it all around so that you, as the victim of the abuse, then look like the perpetrator. And there is a curiosity as well, because ultimately, as a full 360-degree person that we are, potentially everybody has the ability to display maladaptive, negative behavioral traits, right? We can all do that. And so sometimes when you've been in an abusive relationship for a long time, and that's the information, the data that you're getting, and you're seeing that it works for them, it can sometimes become that you choose to start to behave that way also, to try to create some own power and resistance for yourself. And then obviously then you can be manipulated into reactive abuse in that regard, you know. And so just identifying that if you're asking yourself the question, am I the abuser, am I the narcissistic person in this relationship, generally speaking, if you're asking yourself that question, it means that you're not. It means that you're the victim, but you're identifying those behaviors within yourself and feel like they're wrong. To even question it, it means that you're not the abuser, because the abuser wouldn't question whether or not it's right or wrong. They have no regard for that. They ultimately just need to see themselves as winning and you doing as you are told, so that they can feel all powerful, you know. And so that's that caveat on that. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if any of these topics that we discussed today do trigger you in any way and you feel like overstimulated and feel very uncomfortable, please reach out to a 24-hour service that's in your local area to get some support and assistance, because it is very, very important to understand that when you're trying to find your pathway out of an abusive relationship, it does generally tend to escalate very, very quickly, because of the nature of the fact that the abuser will realize that they're losing their control over you. They're losing their supply of financial, emotional, physical desires, whatever it is that they're seeking to get out of you. And when that level of power imbalance starts to rupture, you know, they will ramp it up massively. So please, I implore anybody that feels like they're in this kind of situation to get some support that's local to them, whether it's an abuse shelter or, again, going to the police services, or even if it's a desperate, go to the hospital, 24-hour emergency care, get away from it, safe, somewhere safe, okay, and get some specialized help in your local area. As you say, this is for informational purposes, so that we can start to help to empower you. Yeah. So so I just want to just quickly, we'll just cover what the Biderman behaviors of an abusive person potentially might be. Obviously, there are a multitude of different styles and factors. You know, you might have some of these, you might not have, it might be something else. You know, these are not exhaustive lists. These are just identifying keys to look out for. Okay, so there is an abuser will quite often use an exhauster technique. So this is what says, like, the abuser will try to keep you up late and make you do all of the housework and all of the extra work, and will wake you up in the middle of the night, and keeps going on and on and on, and just like the design is to keep you mentally and physically and emotionally exhausted, so that you just do not have that extra physical capacity to be able to do anything other than just serve all of their needs immediately, right? So again, as you say, if you're breaking somebody's sleep pattern, that automatically makes them more kind of, like, as I said, in that sympathetic nervous system. Like, when we all know, when we're tired, we're more irritable, we're more ratty, and it's just, everything feels more sharp and hard, right? When we're tired, like, even the daylight's like, oh, it's like, oh, I'm tired. But ultimately, you know, if an abuser can keep you tired, then you're more likely to be manipulated and controlled. And then also, if you're tired, again, they can activate on the fact that you're tired and stimulate an argument out of you in public to make you look like you're their perpetrator, you know, because ultimately these people that are utilizing coercive abuse, they won't do it, they won't be abusive out in public, generally speaking. They'll just know the buttons to make you look like the perpetrator. Okay, so then we also have another behavior style of the threatener, a person that makes us scared for our or other people's safety, a person that we feel like we can't trust, and they will also make us feel trapped. You know, somebody that threatens you behind closed doors, like, you know, don't say this, otherwise I'll do that. You know, these are very, very horrible things to be experiencing, you know, and it keeps you on a tightrope, right? Like, very kind of constraint, you know. And ultimately as well, quite often these threats, they come after some kind of thing has already happened. So you know full well that they are more than capable of doing that. You know, quite often they'll be very violently throwing objects around, and maybe a near miss, or maybe that will hit you. And then it's like, oh, well, if you hadn't have been in the way, the shame and blame will go back onto you as the victim for upsetting them. It's like, well, no, you know, we have to identify the fact that a threatener is ultimately, it kind of feels like a 2-year-old temper tantrum in an adult human suit. You know, it is scary and it is life-threatening. It is, you know, there's no two ways about it, right? There is a very potential life risk there, you know, and it is dangerous. And ultimately, as you say, when we get into those kind of situations, quite often running and fighting are very not options. So we will go into a freeze response in those, you know, that it's not just the floppy kind of like, I won't fight, I'll just freeze, I'll like pin down, I won't react to response. And also what happens here as well is we go into a fawning freeze response as well, which is where we placate. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. I'm sorry. You know, that's ultimately what they're doing. They're trying to control you that way with that fear element. But we need to appreciate, as the victims and as other people watching by, when someone starts fawning into that, really placating, people pleasing in that situation, that's not a healthy response. That's a response of, I just need to get through today. Yeah. So, and then we also have another style of called the humiliator. This is the sort of person that will make us feel dirty and ashamed. They'll abuse us sexually and then make us feel shriveled up inside. Okay. The humiliator, it's, you know, when somebody makes you do something under the guise that, oh, we're trying it out, we're experimenting, and then they switch that on you as soon as you've done it, to go, I can't believe you've done that, you're so dirty, you're so disgusting. And they get inside your mind, right? And then because you've been coerced into doing it to try and please the other person, because again, you've already in people pleasing, right? This is another form of eroding your sense of self-worth and your confidence, and just bringing you down, humiliating you in any sort of sense of way. And there's another element that people need to understand, in that behind closed doors, quite often abusers will create trigger words to associate, for the victim to associate to that sensation, right? So they'll call it a safe word, but it's actually like a trigger word, so that then when you're out again in public, they can then say, so if they feel like your behavior is sort of being a little bit out of what they want you to be like, they'll use this trigger word just very silently, and you'll see people like erupt and explode or fawn, or like, you know, again, it's that manipulation of coercive control, the mind kind of linguistic controls that they've had, and it's pinpointing onto that humiliation that you feel inside. We also have the isolator abusive behavior. This is where they stop us seeing from friends and family. They prevent us from having or pursuing any kind of activities that they are not involved with, and they manipulate or force us to stay at home. Okay, so that's again isolating a person in that way, where it makes you feel like you are incapable and incompetent of doing a single thing, and without them being present. Okay. And when you are isolated as well, this actually really heightens the trauma bond. Okay, because ultimately they then become the only source of supply for you to be kept, to be looked after. They're the only potentially source of money coming in. They're the only, so therefore they're the only food winner. They then get to make all of the decisions. You know, it's a very trapped feeling and sensation to be isolated in that. And again, they'll manipulate you in certain ways to make you feel like you have to reject and repel your family as well. It's like, oh, if you loved me, you wouldn't go and see XYZ because, you know, they don't really like me very much. And, you know, it's important that we have this relationship together. And it's like, well, you know, like, and so when you've eroded away a person's choice of being able to go and find any other help, you know, again, you're very isolated. And as a victim in that as well, you then feel like you don't know who you could trust or don't know who you can go and speak to. you know, when like,
Mhm.
especially because quite often as well, in the isolation factor as well, they will create ruptures with your family so that you have had to have arguments, and ultimately, you know, your family have their families to look after as well. And
Mhm.
so, you know, when they burn your bridges for you, it can be a very difficult place to kind of come back from. We also have the brainwasher. This keeps us
Mhm.
focused on them, doesn't give us time or space to think, and keeps us confused. So a brainwasher will quite often use what is termed as like word salad. So this is a phrase that Dr. Romani has coined, that
Mhm.
basically it's where they are telling you one thing, and then in the very next in-breath, they're completely contradicting everything they just told you. And if you're trying to go with them saying, I've noticed that you have maybe done this, they will switch it all the way around, confuse you in this myriad of word salad speak that comes at you. And then before you know it, you're just confused. You feel like you shouldn't have even asked them the question, because
Mhm.
now you've upset them in some way or another. Because you know, ultimately abusers don't like to take accountability or control of anything that they do. They just want to make sure that they can control you, to make sure that you're the one that's, you know, under their control, so that whatever the supply is that they need from you.
Mhm.
We also then have the demander. This forces or manipulates us into doing trivial or pointless tasks, makes us feel confused and insecure. You know, like the sort of thing that's like, if you've done the washing up and then they'll just go and spray some kind of dirty something over the clean dishes. So now you've got to clean everything again.
Again.
Just stupid, annoying, like, you know, like for instance, oh, if they've opened a fizzy pop drink and managed to spray it all over the clean dishes, if you
Mhm.
haven't got a chance to put it away, now you've got to go back through doing that again. And it's just, and then they'll make you feel dirty and disgusting for the same, what, I'm not drinking off that, you've got to clean it again. Like, you know, it's just, and it's just, it really is, it's a pointless demanding,
Mhm.
and it's confusing as well. So why would you do that? But the
Mhm.
ultimate
Yeah.
point is to like, but then that's the thing, like when if we realize to yourself and you're thinking, well, why would you do that? Well, then realize maybe you might be potentially with a person that's just trying to abuse and manipulate you, you know, if that's that
Mhm.
thought. We also then have the type of manipulator that's called the Almighty. These uses acts of extreme power, e.g., violence or aggression, to convince us that they have all the power. You know, they're just almighty in everything. Like, and this is doesn't actually have to just be violence or aggression. As I said, this could be, you know, this is, I have all the money, I have all the power, you know, like the in that kind of, and
Mhm.
and you have to feel like effectively like you're gonna have to beg before you can even receive, you know, enough money to sustain buying the weekly shop. And then, you know, quite often they'll be the one that's can drive you to the shop, and you've got 26 minutes to
Mhm.
actually go around the supermarket and buy exactly what you have to do. And they'll sit and
Mhm.
wait in the car and be timing you. And if you're not out before they think, then they've got to come in and look for you. And then they'll be a bit like, come on, you have to hurry up. And they very rarely understand the price of how expensive things are. So you'll always get like a big telling off of how could you have bought that? Why, like, you know, and you're just putting
Mhm.
on the stress and the shame.
Is
Yeah.
is
And
it
then
like a alpha mentality?
pardon?
Like a alpha mentality?
Yeah, but out thing is with alpha mentality is, even though they want to be all powerful, if it's a healthy alpha mentality,
Okay.
then will also encourage you, and they'll also be rational and
Mhm.
understand the things. And whereas, you know, if you're talking about an abusive alpha
Abusive.
mentality,
Uh-huh.
then yeah, it is very different. It's not there to alpha is designed to empower the group, right? Whereas
Mhm.
if it's abusive, it's not designed to empower anybody other than that one
Okay.
person.
Uh-huh.
um and then we also can have the nice one. There is
Alrighty.
also, yeah, I know, it's like, really, it's like everything.
Yeah.
Again, you know, it's like this one confuses us by being nice, makes us feel like things are getting better, and then makes us feel like all of this awfulness was worth it. You know, this is
Mhm.
where the breadcrumbing and the hoovering and the, like, you know, after they've done something to you and made you feel like you actually want to leave, and because you've got to a point where it's like, you are breaking me, I need to go now. And then they'll go, oh, and then it'll be their turn on the waterworks, and they'll apologize and hoover you back in and buy you gifts and say, I'm so sorry, I won't ever do it again, I won't ever cheat again, I won't ever hit you again, I won't ever, like, but all behind closed doors, make you feel like they could be trying, but it's all a manipulation to get you back into the abuse cycle, back into the cortisol and the adrenaline and the epinephrine and the good feel good hormones as well. Because when you're being not like being treated, it does make you feel good. It's like, oh, okay, I'll try again then. You've already invested time into this relationship. There is obviously something there that you've wanted to have happen anyway, so they're tapping in again on your own desires to make it work, tapping into the fact that you are a people pleaser in this moment as well, because you're already in freeze state, so they're tapping into that and bringing you back in, and then the cycle will perpetuate. And it's like, and when you see that, if you're getting frivolous gifts and things, again, that is a red flag ultimately, to kind of think, why is it that you feel like you need to apologize? I'm happy for people in a healthy relationship, to receive gifts and to give each other treats and perks. There's a special event coming up or whatever. That would be the normal rational thing. But to be like, if you've had a fight and then suddenly this person then brings you a lavish gift as an apology, that what you have to be careful of is that then you feel beholden for the gift, okay? Because they'll go, but I love you because I bought you a diamond necklace. It's okay for me now to hit you. No, it's not. Abuse is abuse, and there is no excuse. That's it, right? Buy me all the lavish things you want. They're all materialistic. Ultimately, it will be used against you by an abuser. It's like, well, like, and what also will happen is quite often is that they'll brag about it. They'll tell everyone about the fact that they've bought you this nice expensive gift to make everybody else think, oh, you're so lucky. I wish my other half would buy me a nice expensive gift like that necklace or that car or whatever, but there's always strings attached. It's never a gift given freely. It's never a gift from love. It's a gift to manipulate and control, and these are things that people need to be aware of. It's like, if and then also as well, if you then seem like you're ungrateful, you want to refuse it, again, the victim by societal standards would be like, well, what's wrong with you? You are ungrateful, BISH, what's wrong with you, But, and again, people will blame and shame the victim because of the manipulation that the abuser has given. Well, how could I be so bad? I wanted to buy them this, she threw it back in my face. It's like, because you can't, because abuse should not be rewarded, So, yeah, so it's really, really important for not only people that are as the victims, but also people around to sort of appreciate that if a gift has come after a black eye, that's not okay, but that's something that you can see. Again, though, it's like if these gifts are coming in and there is no black eye or anything, but you're suddenly noticed that actually I don't get to hang out with my friend very much, they don't let me answer the phone, or if I do ring my friend, their partner suddenly answers the phone. Oh no, they're busy, they're in the toilet, they're with the baby, this, that, and the other. You never get the chance to talk to them. They are potentially being isolated and manipulated and controlled and in a bad relationship. And again, though, as a person that's outside, there is a very tight rope that you have to be careful of as well, because quite often when a person is in a relationship that's with an abuser, if you go and say, I'm not sure that this feels safe for you, because of the nature of the way that the abuser has already got that trauma bond over the victim, they could have manipulated their mind to think, oh, well, you're trying to break me up. You want my other partner, because they'll go, oh, because this is another thing that abusers quite often will do, like especially with lady friends, they'll say, oh, XYZ, your friend, when we were at that party, they were hitting on me, they were trying to get me, she wants me so badly, and they'll make a partner feel very insecure in their friend relationship. So there's that jealousy play as well. It really is a complete mind manipulation, and it's very scary, you know, when you don't know who to trust, and you don't know, and then ultimately as well, quite often they break your self-trust, so you don't. So after a little while, you've become dependent on them. It's like having to walk around with an IV drip in your arm attached to your abuser, because you need that supply of their yes or no to even know whether or not you're coming or going, because they've confused and manipulated and like just eroded the sense of self that you thought you were, to the point where you are absolutely dependent on them to even say, have an opinion about anything, you know, because you're living in a fear state, you're living in that freeze state, you know. And it's just, and it's actually like, when you wake up to it, I mean, I was living in it for over a decade and I didn't realize, you know, I knew I'd felt beholden over having been gifted a car, and financially I knew that I was being manipulated into, you know, supplying clothes and things that I knew we didn't need. But again, it was, I'll buy the clothes because I don't want to have the argument in front of the children. I'll buy this because I don't like the tit for tat, you know. And again, the exhaustion of, I'm just so, I mean, I used to just tell myself all the time, I'm just so tired. I feel like I'm 182 years old already. I used to say that, you know, like, because I was just absolutely exhausted and I'd been being abused and I didn't realize it at the time. But, and then obviously once I did realize certain things and I got to a point where I felt like I had to say no, and then the abuse really ramped up in that. And obviously, as she said, had to have the police come around 17 times within a year and go through the court and get non-molestation orders in place, get like bail conditions and things like that, you know. And even though I did also attempt to prosecute for sexual assault and rape, even when I went to the police and to give them my statement, they told me there that 85% of people that actually raise this allegation don't pursue it, don't follow it through, because ultimately, you know, there is a lot of, like, they need a lot of evidence to actually say about the fact that it's happened, you know, because quite often it's he said, she said, you know. So that's a very demoralizing place to start off with, even after you've built up the courage to kind of go and say this has happened. You know, so, and also, like, especially when you understand the nervous system in and around rape, you know, at the end of the day, like 70% of people that are sexually assaulted will go into a catatonic freeze, of like a freeze state. They won't be able to run or fight. They will shut down in that. And again, with the abuser situation, well, you know, you're then well, you did it. You said, you didn't say no, you didn't run away, you did, like, you know what I mean. And that, and again, it piles on the blame and shame on the victim, you know. And it's not like people will want to falsely have false allegations for that sort of thing, because, you know, ultimately there is a lot of stigma around admitting that you've been sexually assaulted in your past, you know. And people quite often will blame the victim as well. They'll go, oh, well, you were playing hard to get, you know, you really wanted it. And that's not okay. You know, it's a myth that women want to be pursued and coerced or forced into sexual activity. It's not true. And it's extremely damaging to women and someone's self-beliefs about themselves as well. And it can also harm their ability to have healthy, positive relationships moving forward as well, you know, like, especially if there has been physical damage done in that as well. You know, I mean, I've spoken with some clients that have had, you know, been assaulted in childhood, and it's left them mutated, you know. And and that's obviously very, very difficult for a person to have to live the rest of their lives with. And it's not ever the victim's fault, you know. It's always the abuser that was in that point of moment choosing to do that, because ultimately, even though people think that rape is an act of lust, it really isn't. Rape is, it's not that the rapist is without control. Okay, they know exactly what they're doing and they are making choices, and they often are simply motivated by the desire to control and have power over their victim.
Mhm.
Okay, it is an absolute power play, and
Mhm.
it's not okay. Abuse is abuse and there is no excuse,
Sure.
right? um and that, and like, I appreciate as well that, like, hurt people, you know, quite often it has, when people have done like adverse childhood experiences tests, like the ACE test, to see their own childhood experiences, quite often people that perpetrate and perpetuate these sort of assaults have had very maladaptive, very horrible incidences happen to
Incident.
them as well, you know. And you know, my heart bleeds for them, but at the end of the day, they have the responsibility and duty of care to care for themselves, to to heal themselves so that they don't perpetuate pain. And I appreciate as well, you know, we can't know what we don't know, but ultimately we know societally that is not okay to do. Everybody
Mhm.
knows in
Sure.
society, like, it's, you know, that is not okay. And so if you are, if somebody has chosen to do that in the past, it was in the past. Now you have the option to be accountable for yourself, to choose to do better for yourself, to be better for yourself, to not perpetuate that again on another person. You know,
Mhm.
be accountable, choose to fix your own wounds so that you can be reconnect with yourself, because quite often in these situations as well, when you have had that self-trust break, it you do find it hard to find the line of where what is acceptable, because you've been broken, and that's okay. But
Mhm.
you have to, if you want to choose to feel better about yourself, because it is something that you can absolutely do,
Mhm.
it is, it is a hard, difficult choice to make, and it's a choice that you have to continually keep choosing to make, you know, to admit that that was something that you have done, first of all, and to admit
Mhm.
that that was something that was done to you as well. Okay. And then from there, that's where you can then start to really connect back into those sensations. And it will feel horrible having to go into those sensations, because quite often what we will do for just a defense mechanism in our in our own behavior is to dissociate, to completely shut down all feeling. We don't feel anything. You're just completely numb and void to everything. But what that also does is it makes you apathetic to most things,
Mhm.
until, as you say, something flares up and then you get triggered, and then it's a whole big catastrophe again, you know. But, and so when you choose to find self-compassion and grace for yourself so that you can start to go down that healing journey for yourself, understand that it's not going to be a quick fix. Understand that it's not going to be a fun ride. It's going to be ups and downs and highs and lows. And it is a journey. Okay. And hopefully you get support, the right sort of support, with somebody. It might even be a completely brand new set of people, because the set of people that you're, the circle that you're in, just don't have the skill set to be able to support that, and that's okay, you know. But seek to go and find the people that can help you
Mhm.
in your road to recovery, because because there is an understanding that people need to hold to be able to bring somebody through that journey. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. That sort of
Yeah, yeah,
explains
sure,
lots.
sure. And Caroline, I was like not playing around with my phone. Actually, I was like getting some questions. So
Yeah.
I
Okay.
just quickly type them in on my mobile. So
Yes.
as like a note. If you are able to, could I please ask those questions? Like, not to put you in deep waters, but this is out
Yes.
of
Yeah.
pure how to say inquisity. I want to ask these questions. Some
Yeah. Go.
could be a little bit tricky, but no problem. Just say what you feel.
Absolutely. If there's anything that I feel like I can't answer in this moment, I can always go off and ask my
Yeah,
mentors, my peers, and come back to you with the answer.
sure, sure, sure.
Yeah.
No problem. So,
Yeah.
So you ready?
Yes.
So I listened to you and I was listening. I was not like messaging some other people or anything like that. These are the
No,
questions.
it's okay. Yeah.
Each stage you told me, I quickly tried to type them. Some spellings are also wrong here. But
Yeah.
so uh, talking about abusive situations, we were talking mostly about relationships, right?
Mm,
But it can happen in different places. For example, the school, or like even see children. I know, like even hostels or some places, some children can be sexually abused, even, right? And
yeah.
then mental abuse, lot of physical abuse, no, bullying, all these are in fact in workplaces. And then so this thing is not only within a relationship, it can occur in any place and any time even, right, in their lives. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that,
Unfortunately, you know, ultimately, when you're dealing with another person, there is that potential for abusive, regardless of the environment. It is, as you said, it can happen in school places, it can happen in workplaces, it can happen in those other shelters and other sort of wider family extensions as well. I mean, ultimately, I mean, we are taught about stranger danger, okay, and like to worry about strangers, but unfortunately, 3 out of 4 people that are assaulted in that way know and are closely know the person that they are assaulted by. So we need to watch out for we need to watch out for that, to be mindful of that it's not just teaching ourselves to be afraid of strangers. It's to teach ourselves the signs to look out for of an abusive character, those traits that I told you about, the
Mhm,
Biderman's story. And also as well, there is, I mean, I've spoken with some clients that have said that they were assaulted as in childhood, and that they've gone to their caregivers. One specifically went to their father and said that their uncle had done something to them,
mhm.
and their father actually hit them so hard they knocked 3 teeth out of their face and broke their jaw,
Oh,
because the father was like, how dare you lie to me about my brother. Okay, so
mhm,
it's about knowing that sometimes, even if you do speak up, especially when you're in as a child, it sometimes it's not safe for the entire environment, and you have to be able to protect yourself so that you can grow old enough so that you can get out. And I appreciate that that's hard, to understand and to hear. And I it breaks my heart that we live in a place where this sometimes does happen, but
mhm,
ultimately, and as a child as well, you are very much at the mercy of your caregivers, and I appreciate how disempowering that is at times.
mhm, mhm,
Ultimately, if you can just find that little bit of hope within yourself to be able to try to see if you can get to a hospital if you've got a broken face, and hopefully there's an investigation. But again, it's not, the system is not perfect, and I appreciate that. All
mhm,
I can hope for you to do is to just be able to keeping yourself as safe as you possibly can, so that you can live the next day and live the next day until you can find yourself into a place where you have the opportunity to make a choice about your future and take yourself to a place where this doesn't happen to you again, and
mhm,
do your own healing. And I can appreciate as well 100% that living a life where it feels like everybody is a monster is a hard place to be. However, you are not the monster. Yeah,
mhm,
you are the shining light that can bring safety to the next person.
mhm.
Okay, and I believe in you, and you are worthy, and you are lovable, and you are enough just for being you. Okay.
And Caroline, I don't want to like how to make you tired or anything. So
No,
even
no,
small
okay.
answers are totally fine. So
Yeah.
so next my question, next one is, there are some, I don't want to point fingers or anything. There are some
Mhm.
situations, for example, some training, and they put you through so much hardship. They don't let you sleep, like the symptoms you were telling, no, or the
Mm,
facts you were telling. They don't let you
yeah.
sleep, and they can like do let you do anything what they order or ask you to do. No,
Mm,
there are no it's kind kind of,
Yeah.
I'm not
Care of what
pointing
you're teaching.
fingers. We don't have to name anything or anything, because
Yeah.
this is a different thing. We are just trying to see. So within that, there can be plenty of abuse taken without even knowing, right?
Mm.
Which can be really damaging, no, for a person.
Yeah.
No, no wonder they can get PTSD and all these things afterwards, no?
Yeah. Absolutely.
It can
Yeah.
happen, right?
That, yeah, ultimately, yeah, as you said, in order to manipulate a person into being that ultimate trigger machine,
Mm,
then it does come with a psychological and physiological
mm,
cost, and so yeah, so trying to work back through complex trauma like that,
mhm,
PTSD, it is doable. You have to go very, very slowly in order to unwire that, but it is
mm,
absolutely doable. And it's also about finding compassion and grace for the fact that these behavioral mechanisms have been wired into your subconscious and into your muscle memory,
mhm,
um, to create that which they needed out of you.
mhm,
And it's also your choice as to whether or not you want to retain any of that, or whether or not you want to unwrite it.
mhm.
and and that's a journey again, and that's always a choice, because
Yeah.
some of that stuff that they teach you is actually very beneficial,
Mhm.
in the environment where you're expected to go to.
So true.
It's important to be hyper vigilant. It's important to react without asking questions.
Mhm,
You have to be able to defend, and I understand that,
mhm,
but again, when you come back out of the system and then you're trying to reintegrate with a different environment, that's about where the people around you need to understand the compassionate understanding of, you have had a very, very, very different experience to what they have lived in their, through the safety of what you've given them.
true.
So yeah, and maybe it's not so much the education of the person that's coming back. Maybe it's more of the education of the tribe, the family, that
Mhm,
kind of,
mhm, mhm.
yeah. And understanding that what you're going to get back is
Okay.
very different to when.
Uh-huh. And Caroline, I have seen like within like universities, they call it like the rag season or the frag parties, no? Like frag, uh, getting, joining, no? Some movement in the university. So they put you through a very tough time period. And then I have seen like some political organizations, their associates also as children or young
Mm,
people are there. So within that time that rag season and all goes, they slowly like twist it around and get these newcomers, the freshers, to join their parties also. So within that
mm,
abuse time, because they are kind of like numb or like neutralized, they are not allowed to sleep, or now it's getting harsher, no? Not just for
yeah.
fun. And then what happens is like they are slowly brought into a process, like they can be, because it's like they crushed everything that was there before. And
Mm,
then like they are planting new seeds. So
yeah.
in a way, it happens. It kind of like universities, colleges, no, these kind of places also. And it worst thing is it can be twisted into like a political motivation or get more people, no, enrolled. That also happens. So is it, can that abuse also be a reason for that?
I mean, when people understand the way to manipulate other
Uh-huh.
people and the way that our systems and our programs work,
Mm-hmm.
as you say, I mean, ultimately other people can manipulate you in
Manipulate,
that
right?
way.
Uh,
Which is why it's important as an individual to learn your own triggers so that you can keep yourself healthy and keep yourself away from being manipulated in that sort of way,
mm-hmm.
because that you do have protective mechanisms for it. um like, for instance, quite often people that have been abused and get into that sort of situation will develop like response, uh what do they call it, response avoidance, or rejection sensitivity and stuff like that. There's lots of different other behaviors, if you're trying to reject it, that will come out in you. And but again, when that happens, quite often then the abuse will ramp up as well. And it's really ultimately the only way that you can get out of that is by completely cutting all ties, moving to a completely different environment, um, and working on your own self-healing, understanding your own behaviors, your own triggers, and then it's your choice as to whether or not you do anything about it after that, as to whether or not you seek to stop that behavior, you know.
Mm.
And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to,
Sure,
you
sure.
know, have a voice out there so that people can at least
Mm.
understand. Yeah. And
Yeah.
to reduce the fear as well, because ultimately, you know, this sort of manipulation, it is instilling fear in people that aren't involved in it as well, you know, and this isn't fair on society as a whole for
Mm.
us to be living under this manipulation, whether or not it feels like it directly affects you or indirectly affects you, it affects
Mm.
you, you know, and so, yeah.
And Caroline, what about culture? Because in some cultures, for example, men and women, both both sides, I mean, they are supposed to
Mm,
do some things, no, according to their cultures.
yeah.
So, but in another culture, it can be considered as abusive, right? For
Mm,
example, like, but in those cultures, but sometimes either side they like to do it or they are willing to do it. Uh, but if you in another culture, it can be considered, uh, for example, like, yeah, should definitely everybody should have equal rights and all these things. And
mm.
but in another, how to say, in another philosophy or way of seeing it, they can say like, oh, this is so abusive, you know. But for maybe for those people there, it's a normal thing. No, this is what they do. Or no.
Eh, yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely. I mean,
how to know this differentiation? How to cope up with that? Because many
as you said,
people from different places will be listening to this, right?
yeah, for sure, for sure. And as you say, we have to be mindful and respectful of the fact that other people will
Mm,
want to choose differently, how to live their life differently. And we can't know what we don't know. We can
mm-hmm,
only get brought up in the environment that we get brought up with
mm-hmm,
and appreciating those laws and those societal expectations.
mm-hmm,
Um, there is obviously, you know, some very major differences around the world, and again, if those people that are living there are very happy with that, you know, that's okay. You know, it is ultimately a choice
mm-hmm,
to to want to continue to pursue living there, or ultimately, you know, I mean, here in England we had the suffragettes movement, the women's rights movements. They were things that my foremothers chose to change the law in the land that I live in, so
mm-hmm,
as to move things, because they felt like that wasn't acceptable, and that's okay, you know. And but again, we need to be able to have places in the world that choose to do things differently so that we can have a choice, because if we all did everything exactly the same,
mm-hmm.
then that would be another form of manipulation and control, wouldn't it? Like, so ultimately we need to be
Yeah.
able to have places that give us the option, and then ultimately, as you said, like, I could potentially choose to move to one of those areas where my living ability is more constrained in that regard, if I felt like that was what I wanted from my life. But again, it's about knowing your choices so that you can make it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But within that also you can see clearly like physical abuse, no trauma, mental abuse. No, you can see, if they are not happy or they are stuck in some place or getting beaten up, or abusive speech. Even with those cultural things also, still there are differentiations we can see, and it mainly relates onto happiness, peace of mind, mental health, these kind of facts, no?
Yeah, I mean, you know, ultimately, as the society, it it needs to ask itself the question of, are we happy with the
Mm-hmm.
trajectory of where this behavioral system is going? Does it make me feel like I want to continue to pursue it, or does it make me feel like I might want to take autonomy over whether or not I do it to the letter, or whether or not I seek to try to amend some things slightly so as to improve my own lifestyle? Because ultimately, if the people around you are happier, they will be more proactive, more productive. You know, if you're not completely exhausting somebody to the point of oblivion, then they'll actually be able to help you rather than just serve you. And that's a choice. Again, do you want to just be served for the mediocrity that there is? Or do you want to give somebody the opportunity to empower themselves so that they can choose to help you and give you abundance? Because that's what you're losing out on, you know.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Caroline Harley-Bell. It was such a wonderful, how to say, teaching or guidance you did today.
Yeah.
So,
I
and
hope somebody learned at least one thing.
yes, we should. And I know exactly one person whom this video should go to
Yeah.
after this, after we prepare it properly. And then I'll
Yeah.
share it to that person. So hopefully that person comes in contact with you. And yeah, surely we'll put all Caroline's details in the video as well as the post. So anybody can contact her and get all the help you need. And hopefully we can have more sessions like this or discussions or how to say guidance like this in the future that will
Yeah.
benefit so many people. So thank you so
Yeah.
much, Caroline. And
All right.
it has been a
And
great pleasure.
yes, thank you so much. And again, like if anybody else has any questions for the podcast, they can send them in. Maybe we could answer them on the next session as well. That'd be great.
Yeah, surely.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. Have a great
Thank you
day.
so much, Caroline. Have a great day.
All
Okay,
right.
see you
Again,
soon.
if you feel like you need to get some help right now, if any of this has triggered anybody, you know, again, your local services are available for you, 24-hour medical care as well, or 24-hour phone support. There are lots of avenues out there to get support, so please do. You are important, you are worthy, you are lovable. All right.
Okay, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Bye.
Okay, see you.